Hello guys, and welcome to a new Steel Division video today by me, Vulcan. Today I have for you the fourth and final battle group overview for the 16th Luftwaffe. Previously I've covered the three other second wave DLC divisions. This time we're moving on with the 16th, and it's certainly an interesting division that has some very different quirks, and we'll get straight into it. Let's go into the Recon tab. So the Recon in this division is pretty simple, very similar to the first SSB. You only have 6 cards to actually choose from. But in Phase A, what I'm going to be doing is bringing the Aufklärer in the UE 630MG. Quite simply because this 630MG is actually relatively useful in certain situations. And having the 2-man infantry squads is nice as well. Just because the stealth on the Aufklärer is just like 100 times better than the Luftwaffe Fusilier in this division. So having those available and having them dotted around hidden is a good idea. Whereas most of your infantry in the Luftwaffe Recon is going to be Luftwaffe Fusiliers. You can get 2 cards of these in Phase A if you want, being 3 apiece, or you can go for the extra availability in Phase B, and that's generally what I go for because these are actually really good. These Luftwaffe Fusiliers, they have the MP28, which has the 3 HE, so 2 of them gives them 6 HE. At close range, they have, the Kar98, which is the 8 HE at close range, which is not too bad. And then at longer ranges, they have the 6 HE due to the MG15. On top of that, they also have a Faustpatron, which allows them to engage vehicles at 150 meter range, similar to the Panzerfaust. So it's a beautiful combination. Plus they are Recon, they have the very high optics. So accompany these with your standard infantry and they work very, very well indeed. And they're pretty expensive for what they are. I mean, they are a pretty damn awesome infantry squad. They lack a bit of availability, but just in general, they're just a nice infantry squad that you can't really go wrong with. You can use them as infantry, you can use them as specifically Recon, and yeah, just really, really good all-round squads. So make sure you use them and accompany them with your own infantry. That's just all I can say, really. In Phase B, you can get more Luftwaffe Aufklärer, but that is it. They come in Kubel MGs this time, not even the beautiful UE 630 MG. Let's move on to the infantry tab. So here we have the Luftwaffe Führer, your staple command infantry for Phase A, which is to be expected. Now this is kind of like an infantry division, infantry slash aircraft division. So relying on infantry command is actually something that you'll be doing quite a lot, and therefore having Luftwaffe Führer in Phase A and B is pretty important. So bringing those in Phase A is necessary. I'm also accompanying them by Luftwaffe Jäger and Luftwaffe Pioneers. Now, Luftwaffe Jäger are great. They are pretty much just your standard infantry squads. They've got 5 HE at close range, 6 HE at long range. Basically a downgraded Panzergrenadier in a sense that they just have 1 less MG and therefore the 4 less HE on their machine guns. But yeah, it's just a nice sort of combination, and they still have the Panzerfaust there. But the one beautiful thing about the 16th Luftwaffe is they can get Luftwaffe Pioneers in Phase A. Now these guys have 2 20 HE power grenades, and they're 10 strength squads. So these can very easily take on allied infantry, no matter the veterancy, early game. The beauty about Pioneers is that it's exactly what they do. They trade with enemy infantry, and Luftwaffe Pioneers are just beautiful for countering like enemy elite infantry in Phase A. They're just really good for that. Things like airborne engineers or airborne rifles. Luftwaffe Pioneers will kill those with their 20 HE power grenades. They will kill commando units. It's just fantastic. Really, really nice unit that you want to play around quite a bit, and will accompany your units in Phase A very well. So yeah, that's something to think about. You can also get, of course, the MG34 for availability of those, but I tend to lay off the availability in Phase A and focus more on infantry availability in Phase B, because you can't actually bring in any cards of infantry in Phase C. You have to rely on your Phase B availability. So Phase B, Luftwaffe Führer, get 4 more of those. We've got 2 cards of Luftwaffe Jäger. You get 8 on each card, which is insane. There's just a ton of infantry availability in this division. You have the Luftwaffe Pioneers, more of those. Honestly, it's always tempting to maybe drop out another card of Luftwaffe Jäger and bring in more Luftwaffe Pioneers. That's always a choice, especially if you're going into maps that have a lot more close range engagements, like in forests or towns and stuff. So yeah, there's always that choice. And you can build this division to be like a direct counter to like close range infantry divisions on the Allied side, like the 101st and the 6th Airborne, if you wanted to, just by spamming Pioneers at their face, kind of like the 3rd Fallschirmjäger do. But in Phase B, you can also gain access to the MG271, which is a 9 HE power, 800 meter range MG with 7 accuracy. So if you compare that to the MG34, it's 2 more accuracy. And this means that it does a ton of damage. It's a bit less like rate of fire, but like the HE is like the same, and it just mows people down due to the accuracy. It's very, very strong indeed. And getting 4 of those in Phase B definitely allows you to set up some great sort of area of denial for enemy infantry around towns and stuff. So that's pretty much your infantry tab. Either go for the standard like this, or you can switch out for more Luftwaffe Pioneers and spam those into the elite divisions. It's up to you. Because in Phase B, you do get a lot of points to work with. In the tank tab, things pretty simple. In Phase A, you can get the Panzer 730Ms or the Panzer 730C. One just has a machine gun, 8 HE machine gun. One has the 4 AP power main gun, 1 HE. Generally, people, if they're going to bring either of these, would bring the 730Ms, because those machine guns can be pretty useful in a tank that's armoured. But the main issue that I have with the Panzer 37Ms is how slow they are. Like 13 km per hour speed off-road, 18 km per hour speed on the road. They take ages to get to the front line. There's actually been increased recently as well. It used to be less, which is crazy. But yeah, either way, in my opinion, not the best unit to have, although might cause a distraction to your enemy and be a pain in the ass to kill for a little while. But other than that, they are quite simply meat shields. This Panzer 730M's even worse meat shields. In Phase B, you can get Stug 3 F8s, but because they are not veteran or anything, not the most ideal unit to be countering armour in this phase. You have like quite good veteran 88s and other AT that can deal with armour for you. So the Stug 3 is not necessarily worth bringing. In Phase C, however, Befehlsstug with the command is very nice indeed for the same price as the Stug 3 F8. So Befehlsstug 3 has extra veterancy, has the command. Quite a nice choice, honestly. And you can accompany that with Stug 3Gs, which is just 14 AP and 10 front armour. The slight armour upgrade there compared to the Stug 3 F8. So yeah, pretty nice combination. Allows you to have some form of tank in Phase C should you need it. Good for killing off divisions that lack heavier armour in the late game. Let's move on to the Support tab. The Support tab is pretty simple. You only have 4 activation slots in this division, but there are some units to consider. First of all, we have the Flammenwerfer, which is sometimes pretty nice for the close range support with your own infantry. Like if you use flamethrowers in conjunction with infantry you already have, like for example the Pioneers or the Luftwaffe Jäger, you will be able to do some damage with the Flammenwerfer. The main issue with this Flammenwerfer is it's very expensive. Like it comes in a Kubel and it's still 25 points. Like that's a lot for these 2-man flamethrower squads. It does have smoke grenades though. Maybe they'll come in useful, but generally I don't see the use of these compared to, like for example, the I think 10-point command 10-point Canadian flamethrowers that you can get. They're actually 2-star veterancy. It's a big disparity there. This is the UE 630 Sicherungs. It comes with the 6 HE main gun, 5 accuracy, 800 meter range. Could be a decent fire support vehicle in Phase A, but I'm much more likely to bring in the Opel Blitz munition every time. So that's what you can see me doing there. Same deal in Phase B. Flammenwerfer is not worth bringing. Going to be bringing in the Opel Blitz munition. Give me all of the munitions I need to, use my artillery throughout the game. Then I have the Stör 42s. The Stör 42s are 100% necessary in Phase B. They really help you solidify the 1,200 meter range engagement against just many units, honestly. It's not necessarily to kill AT guns, it's more there as like an assault gun for your infantry, which is exactly what the Stör 42 was designed for. It was an assault gun after all. And if you use them in conjunction with like your Luftwaffe Jäger and your Luftwaffe Pioneer, these can really do a lot of work. They can do a ton of damage to enemy infantry squads, and although they may not necessarily pick up the kills, they definitely do the job, and they can tank quite a lot of shots from M1 guns and stuff. Like, these Stör 42s can be a real pain in the ass for your enemy, and that's why I love them so much. They are really, really useful for just continuing to break through with your infantry, and give you a little bit of mobility to work with. And let's move on to the anti-tank tab. So the anti-tank tab here is probably the main reason why you don't necessarily need tanks in the earlier phases. Like, you can't bring in any decent tanks in Phase A anyway. Phase B, I just don't bring in the Stugs because I rely on these Pak 40s. But let's have a look at the other ones anyway. The Panzerschrecks here coming in the U3 630. It's just an armoured carrier to bring in the Panzerschreck squad. Panzerschrecks are great because they have the 250 meter range, and I always find a use for them. I find they always tend to pay themselves off. So that is the beauty of the Panzerschrecks. I'm also going to be bringing in the Panzerjäger Bren. Gives you a little bit of mobility early on. They have 10 round per minute rate of fire, which is actually pretty damn decent. Which with their 5 AP main gun and the 2 HE can be useful for both picking off plenty of half tracks or pinning down infantry very quickly. They can do that with that 2 HE. I've also got a couple of Pak 38s to accompany me, just because it's not quite needed if you're not going to be relying on the 88s in the early game, which you don't tend to do anymore since the veterancy nerf on the 88s. So yeah, Pak 38s going to be brought in Phase A. In Phase B, Pak 38s become pretty much redundant, so relying on the Pak 40 is much more likely. And I also have, of course, the 88s in the anti-air tab. And then in Phase C, again, Pak 40s are probably the only unit that is worth bringing over the other Pak 38s. So that's your anti-tank in this division. Let's move on to the anti-air. So first of all, we have the Flak Panzer Bren, and a lot like the Panzerjäger Bren in the anti-tank slots, it's actually a pretty underrated unit in my opinion. It can be used for both anti-air with the 20mm, although it kind of tickles planes, but it's also fantastic for pinning down enemy infantry, as well as killing it off. It has actually pretty high lethality at the 600 meter range. With the 2-star veterancy with a command nearby, it's really, really good, and definitely a force to be reckoned with for 40 points as well. Really, really nice unit actually. I don't bring Flak Villings or the Flak 43 with the 37mm autocannon. I just don't use those in Phase A. I actually bring in both of the Flak 36s, which may not necessarily be the best choice anymore, since these used to be 2-star veterancy, but they had a veterancy nerf in Phase A. And I guess it made sense because these were just like one-shotting planes out the sky. Like you bring in 2 of these and a 2-star veterancy apiece, like they were just one-shotting like enemy fighters out the sky in Phase A, which is not something that you necessarily want to happen. Also, the benefit of the veterancy was that they could just destroy tanks very easily as well. You could just unload them in the face of Shermans and just blow them up, which was not very nice to play against. So they did receive that nerf, and it might, warrant maybe dropping out an 88 for some Flak 37mm or maybe a couple of Flak Villings. It's really personal preference there. But that's all of the Phase A units in this division. Moving into Phase B, there is the NAG 4537mm, which is an armoured truck with the 37mm autocannon on the back of it. And then you have the NAG 4500 drilling. This is like, this slays enemy aircraft if it gets in range. 18 HE power. I mean, come on, look at this thing. It's an absolute beast. I mean, it looks like a poor old truck, but these weapons on the back, just absolutely crazy. I don't even know how that ever worked, but you know, 18 HE, can't complain. Pretty nice unit indeed. But I much prefer these Flak-Zwillings. These Flak-Zwillings have 24 HE power and are just incredible. It's a double 37mm mounted onto like an 88, and it's just incredible. Like the 88 chassis, with a Flak-Zwilling mounted on it, it's just absolutely insane. It's like having a double mobile wagon. Just crazy stuff. And it's 2-star veterancy as well. Having one of these in Phase B, there is nothing that's going to be able to escape it. It will always make planes fall back, at least, if not kill them. And that's the beauty of the Flak-Zwilling. I'd say the bad part about the Flak-Zwilling is it is actually quite vulnerable to being artied. So there's that. And if you'd prefer to play around that, then probably the NAG would be a better choice, since it does have the armoured front. The NAG 4500 will suffer just as much really to enemy artillery, I think. Then we have in Phase B some more 88s. These are 2-star veteran 88s, fantastic for shooting down planes, but also of course for destroying enemy tanks. So if you need some tank destroying capability, the 88s should be your choice, and they have the 1200 meter range. So ideally what you want to do is unload them before they get into the 1200 meter range and then roll them into range so that they can aim and fire immediately. If you roll them into range of the enemy units, what will happen is it will unload, probably mostly panicked already, which is not good at all. And that if you get an 88 that's basically panicked in front of a tank, the tank will just kill it. It's as simple as that. The 88 isn't getting away very quickly when it only has 8 km/h speed. Yeah, not great. Also, the thing that you have to remember with the 16th Luftwaffe is this is not a half track that sticks around. The multi-air will disappear once it's dropped off the 88, and that makes your 88s very immobile compared to 88s in other divisions. So bear that in mind. Now moving on to Phase C, more Flak-Zwillings are available, so why not? This is an absolutely beautiful AA gun. And then I'm accompanying myself with 3 more 88s. Again, just for more anti-tank capability, 2-star veterancy, can't go wrong. Let's move on to the artillery tab. So the artillery tab of the 16th Luftwaffe is relatively okay. In Phase A, 80mm mortars are your friend. Also, you have access to the FK288s, which are technically 1,200 meter range AT guns, as well as 2,600 meter range HE artillery. So, a very versatile unit. And I haven't really experimented with them too much, but I've seen them used very well in the past. And yeah, I definitely kind of want to try them out myself. More often. I think I've only played around with them once, but they're definitely a very good unit indeed. Thinking about the fact that they offer 1,200 meter range AP in Phase A, that is pretty damn strong against a lot of units, because it's enough to penetrate things like Cromwells, for example, and maybe just enough to penetrate a Churchill, or at least, you know, start to cause morale damage, if not penetrate. Then in Phase B, I've actually got more of the FK288s. These FK288s with 1-star veterancy, you know, if you get a command nearby, they're going to be firing a lot more frequently, which is very nice. You can get 120mm mortars in Phase B as well. These have 20 HE at 1,600 meter range though, and I often find that by Phase B, these things will end up getting counter batteried, so that's why I've opted now to go for the FK288s instead. I did completely ignore the 50mm mortars here, by the way, just because 700 meter and 4 AP is just not great. The only thing these are useful for is smoke, if anything. Then moving finally into well, Phase C, you can get access to these SFH 396s, but I've got 2 in Phase B, and I think that's enough. 23 HE power, 2,600 meter range is actually relatively strong. For 140 points, it's like 20 more points than a 25 pounder. I'm pretty sure you get like 8 more HE. So yeah, that's pretty strong indeed. Also at 1,000 meter range, they do have 14 AP, which is something else you can maybe take advantage of. These are actually captured Russian guns, so that's pretty cool indeed. But yeah, you can get more availability of those in Phase C should you need to, but most of your units will be brought in Phase B due to your exceptional income during that phase. Let's move on to the Air Tab. So in the Air Tab, things are very cool. This division is just so unique in many different ways, and another way it's unique is that it does have Recon off-map. So there is the Recon aircraft that can bring in 173mm off-map in Phase A. And generally, people don't bring in fighters in Phase A very much anymore. So this Storch can actually get away with, flying around, giving you the recon information, as well as providing those off-map strikes. And it's very nice indeed. So having that available is something I like to do. The ME-109G2R1s are interesting in that they have the 115 HE power bomb, but in terms of activation points, I couldn't find a place for them. But otherwise would be something that's nice to accompany and maybe protect the BEO Storch in Phase A and allow you to use it in Phase A. Generally, I mean, you're taking a big risk if you bring these out in Phase A and you don't have your AA set up, but otherwise you should be fine. One very strange thing about how the 16th Luftwaffe works is that most of your support for things like bombers and your AT planes doesn't come in the form of other fighters, it comes in the form of AA. So your AA sort of allows you to bring in your own bombing strikes. So the only way that your opponent can counter your airstrikes really is to bring in their own AA, rather than bringing in their own fighters. Like fighters just aren't a thing that the 16th Luftwaffe really needs to deal with once it has a decent AA network set up. All of your planes should survive unless you roll them over a massive AA base or something. Like if somebody's brought in 4 CGMCs, then maybe you'll have something shot down. But other than that, most of the time, your units should survive. But let's have a look at the other units that I have. So moving into Phase C, you can get Focke-Wulf 190 A8 BR21s, which are Focke-Wulfs with the 2 210mm rockets, which is pretty damn cool. They have a really awesome snake design down the side of them as well, which makes them look really awesome. But yeah, these are basically your fighters. They have good agility, so they maintain the same agility as like a normal fighter, or a Focke-Wulf fighter at least. And they have 10 HE on their main guns, so can shoot down enemy fighters very quickly. But these will be your fighters throughout the most of the game, as well as providing you with those rocket strikes. You also have a HS-129B1 in Phase B. Definitely recommend bringing this in. Really good for picking off like M4s and Cromwells and Churchills. Anything really that can kill off your 88s, you want to be trying to take out with this HS-129 in Phase B. Other choices for Phase B are the JU-188s. These can bring in 28 5 HE power bombs, which is a hell of a lot, but it's just going to stun units, right? It doesn't actually kill units, so that's something to consider. Definitely can carpet bomb the crap out of something, but unless you have something mobile to move in and make it all surrender, I don't find the JU-188 particularly viable in this division. So moving on to Phase C, you can get more of the same JU-188s. You can also get JU-188s with 2 30 HE power bombs. Now that's what I'm talking about. This is the lethality I love. 30 HE power bombs. There's not much that can get away with this, or get away from this. You can kill off basically any open top unit with these bombs, and you can also kill off quite a few tanks with these bombs up to a certain armor value. I'm not entirely sure exactly what it is, but yeah, even if you are dealing with things like jumbos and you don't have anything to kill it, just bring out a Ju-188 and just bomb it. Like, it will force it to fall back at least, if anything, and then maybe you'll find a side shot with one of your 88s or something. But yeah, this bomber is just so damn good. And honestly, there's always the consideration of actually having 2 of them on the division. The only problem with that is that by phase C, you're only getting 100 points per minute, and it's 280 points. So it's a lot of investment, unless you maybe save up to buy both of them as soon as you hit phase C. But that's not really viable either, because that'd be like 600 points almost, like 560 points. Just nuts. Anyway, yeah, awesome bomber. 30 HE, really does the job, and I love the detail with all of the people in the front there. It looks really cool. HS129B3, also available in Phase C, has the 16 AP main gun on the front of it, which you can definitely use to penetrate a lot of units. It's quite nice. It's got the 6 accuracy. As it gets closer to the unit, it will increase in accuracy and AP power. So this has a lot of punching power for a lot of units, and again, helps you clean up units that would otherwise be killing your 88s. Finally, the BEO Storch again coming out, this time with 210mm off map. Fantastic for finding and killing enemy artillery, which will be again killing your own artillery and your anti-air units. So that's pretty much what these Recon aircraft are used for in the late game. I had a really good game once, and a replay that I showed you guys where I brought in these Focke-Wulf 190s just as my Recon was arriving over their lines, and then targeted 2 25-pounders with the Focke-Wulf 190s and killed them both with those rocket strikes, and it was really, really satisfying and looked really cool. So yeah, it's definitely possible to take out the enemy's counter battery, as long as they haven't invested, of course, in their own AA. Otherwise, there's not too much you can do about that. Maybe bring in a Ju-188 to bomb it, and then bring in the Focke-Wulf 190s afterwards. But yeah, just be careful with what you're doing, as you don't want any units ever really to be shot down by enemy AA if you can help it. It's kind of a waste. But that is it. That is the 16th Luftwaffe. Just generally, you play around your infantry and your massive availability of infantry with the Stuart 42s. You supplement that with your Luftwaffe Fusiliers, like you just mix them in with your normal infantry. And then you bring along your Panzerjäger Brenns and Flak Panzer Brenns in Phase A to make some ground. Maybe bring in an 88 or 2. And then in Phase B, you can back that all up with your Stuart 42s, your Pak 40s, your FK288s, and obviously the Flak-Zwilling. I would definitely recommend bringing that in as soon as you can in Phase B, because it will quite simply like black out the sun with flak. It's pretty nuts, and will stop any planes from attacking you really in that phase until it starts to get artied. But as soon as you start to see enemy counter battery coming in, find it with your recon planes, take it out with your bombers and with your rocket planes as quickly as possible, maybe with your own arty even, and you'll be laughing, because there's not much else they can do otherwise to take out your massive AA network, and those 88s can stand up very well against enemy tanks, so make sure you try and do that as well. Although don't get caught out unloading too late. That's really, really bad. But that's the 16th Luftwaffe. Let me know what you guys think of the way I've set it up. If you have any differences or anything you'd like to say, please leave it in the comments. I love your discussion as always. But in the meantime, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.